Hey everybody, Francisco Chavarria. So, end of module 4. So, at the end of module 3, I was just completely mind blown and jaw dropped as when we were talking about the blowouts and the walkouts of 1968 in Los Angeles, and it just hit me when I was like, wow, this wasn't even that long ago. I mean, my parents were alive at this time. So in module 4, I was even more mind blown to see how this continued in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even as recently as, President Trump. So the 70s ended up having these issues with eugenics. Eugenics is controlled breeding to get rid of some hereditary characteristics, whether it be mind problems like Down syndrome or alcoholism or anything like that. So eugenics was a form of trying to control breeding, and this was in the 70s, which kind of hit me a little odd just because I was like, the 70s I was thought to believe was the era of hippies and love and peace. And to know that something like this was going on behind the scenes, or not even behind the scenes, out in the open, is mind-boggling. In 1975, in the case of Madrigal versus Dr. Kigan, um, is a case where 10 women were, taking doctor to court because they were sterilized against their will, and they were coerced into, signing to be sterilized and getting their tubes tied and having them, tricked into doing this. And it's just like, it was going to the point where they would say, "Oh, do you want this medication to stop the pain? Well, then you got to sign this paper." And it was just wow. In 1975, and things were going on where people were trying to control something so much. Now, I have I was a foster parent for a while, so I'm kind of guilty of having these thoughts where I'm like, why do people have all these kids when they can't take care of them? So I mean, I'm guilty for having that mentality for some odd reason, but it just makes us think like, well, who gets to decide this, And in these cases, like, wait, because of race and ethnicities, and it's like, okay, we're just gonna we're gonna choose who gets to have children, who doesn't. It's just wrong. And then this goes further, even like in the 80s and 90s, and in the Southwest Salem story, where these four lesbians were accused of raping a little girl, and it was to the point where because of their sexuality, they were thought of on the same level as witches and witchcraft, and people had the mentality of thinking, oh, well, this is just what homosexuals do. And it's like, what? Like, how can people think this, So all of them were found guilty for it, and there was no merit to the story. There was no consistency, but yet they all served time until they finally, got to fight it and appeal it and ultimately win. But I mean, damage was done. They spent quite some time in prison, and their lives kind of changed completely, and it's all because of their sexuality. And it's like, why do we live in so much fear, It's like fear of not understanding, fear of not knowing what the other person is going through, or their lifestyle, or just because it's different. It's like sparks so much fear in people, which leads me to point 3, which is talking about why do they want to get rid of, Chicano studies and classes like that. And I think it's just all because of fear and control. I mean, I personally right now feel empowered learning so much from my Chicano history that I didn't know before. And I feel a little empowered saying, wow, everything makes sense of why certain people feel so strongly about other races, and what ultimately we have had to go through to get to the equality that we are in today, which is still lopsided. So I think the reason why they're trying to get rid of these studies is to keep that control and say, hey, you know what? Uh, they're only going to learn as much as we want them to learn. And I could be way off the wall here, and I can just be speaking as a minority right now. But I mean, I think that they would want to get rid of these classes because knowledge is power, and the more knowledge they can keep from us, and they stay in control. So I look forward to hearing the rest of you guys and looking forward to a good discussion. Thank you.